I said in the last video, hey, we'll get the new logo someday. Paranoia kind of got the best of me. It has potential to be a lot of fun. Oh, baby. Yo, what is up? It has been a minute, but hopefully for you guys, it won't seem like that since I can hopefully get this edited and up kind of nearly shortly after the previous time of trying to fix the radiator on the DC2. Here it sits, kind of stalled out from where we were last time. It's been probably almost a month since I worked on it, and that was a little bit just like trying to regroup and figure out what to do. I will touch base on that in a second. If you saw the thumbnail, then you kind of have an idea of what's going on, but it has just been like a super busy time, you know, moving into the house, and then we did a bunch of housework moving in. It's still not done. There's still a lot of work to do in there. And then there's like just, it was crazy overgrown yard work. So it's just been like, go of a whole bunch of stuff that's not car stuff, just life stuff. And then last week we went down to Okinawa. Finally, it's been about a year and a half since we saw Shio's family. So once we got the house, we were like, okay, let's plan a trip. We know everything's taken care of here. So yeah, we went down there and saw her family for the first time in a really long time, which was really cool. Okinawa was just gorgeous. Weather's beautiful. But man, like yard work, cleaning up that, trimmed all those bushes. This stall here is what we were just dumping all the, you know, ripped out carpet and just trash from the house, because the previous owner left a bunch of stuff in the house, which was all part of the deal. We just said we'll throw it away and kind of sort out what's good and what's bad. So as you can see, like this parking stall, there's like old tatami over there, and you know, bathroom mirror, carpet, just this is all sorted out in order to get thrown away in the quote-unquote free trash, like so we don't have to haul it off in a dumpster, because throwing away trash is just much more difficult here. Like those bags are all sorted out for like metal, ceramics, glass, and then hopefully they'll take all that as well. So, but yeah, we still got carpet to get rid of over there, and then all this more stuff to cut up and break down and get rid of. There's some shocks and brake rotors back there from breaking down parts for car parts to ship out with JDM Wheels Co. For today, the focus is to get this DC2 cooling system done, no more leaks, get the radiator fitted, all that stuff that I've had troubles with, because we really do need a second car here. I've been shuttling Shio back and forth to work in the van, and that just takes a lot of extra time. You can see we are much more rural. 2 cars is kind of mandatory here, and this situation, it needs to get sorted out. The top of the radiator is touching the core support, and then I've already trimmed out these a whole bunch, and I still have like 0 clearance there. I want to keep AC, like sacrificing air conditioning is not an option right now, so I'm gonna do whatever I can to keep the AC. This has the provisions for the fan, and I just don't know why they made it fit so terribly tight. But to fix that, we have this, which is another radiator, and this one is, you can see a new logo, Koyorad. Basically, last time when I got done working on the car, I was a little bit fed up, and I just hit up Yahoo again. I'm like, what are my other options here for another radiator? This newer model happened to be for sale. So here we have 2 Koyo radiators, and I guess we'll just, you know, hit on some differences here. So you can see the new one is a new logo, and then the one coming out is old logo. End by end we have the old logo and the new logo. This one is, I believe, a Type Z, and then this one is the newer, or the newest Type F. So this is 53 millimeters, and this one is 48 millimeters. So you can see just barely the thickness difference, but 5 millimeters, or just under 1/4 inch. From what we're starting with, like that's a lot. Fingers crossed that makes a difference and it fits in the car a little better. But that's really the only reason I bought this, because I did some more research, realized this newer one was thinner. I said in the last video, hey, we'll get the new logo someday. I didn't think that day would be so soon. But yeah, that's the whole difference. 48 mils versus 53 mils. So let's get that, sit in the car, and see how it fits. But I took the opportunity as well to pick up some OEM parts. I went ahead and picked up some new hoses. These are the new lower mount bushings as well. And then this is the upper rubber grommets for the upper mounts of the radiator. So yeah, just some extra refresh bits there, hopefully to get everything as reliable as possible and freshened up. Yeah, and then I put this in there to show you guys, but this is the first like car magazine I've bought in a very long time, but it's a new option magazine dedicated to the 86 and BRZ. I just think it's a super neat chassis, super exciting. Yeah, someday, soon-ish, I would love to get, hey, check it out. There's Takahiro's Warp Ikea's Jax EF. Sometime soon I'd love to pick up either the Zenki or the Koki GT86 or BRZ. Mess with one of those because it's just like such an exciting chassis. And then here's the new lower mounts in comparison to the old ones. Of course they're fresh and not squished yet, so they're a little bit taller, which probably isn't going to help me out. I'm debating whether or not to cut these a little shorter or cut these old ones shorter. I just want to get just a whisker lower than this so there's really no chance of contact, but I'm going to chuck these on, test fit it, and see how it fits with the taller ones. So I would need to shave this even thinner to squeeze by because it's not lined up with the mounting position down below at all. So I don't know, maybe I should just shave that out even more. After trimming and fiddling and mounting and remounting and all that, it is sitting down in the mounts below, and we're just like literally just barely touching there. And then over here it's rubbing as well on the heat shield. Right now it's sitting all the way down in the mounts. So if I can get some clearance back, then I think we'll be good. I trimmed the lower mounts as you saw in the time lapse just to get like, I don't know, probably 4 millimeters, something like that, maybe 5 millimeters, so that'll let the radiator sit a little lower and hopefully clear the core support. And then I trimmed one more time. I thinned down this part of the fan bracket even more. It still doesn't flex like, you know, as I pull on it, the whole bracket's, you know, housing, everything's moving. So I think it's plenty strong. And again, this only kicks on with AC is on. And then underneath this upper mount of the fan, whatever, I put 2 washers in order to fill that gap that was in there. It seems like this mount was welded just a little low. So originally when I was screwing or bolting this down, it would compress it and that would actually make it like stick out more. So, you know, reduce the amount of clearance I have. So I spaced it out on this side with 2 washers and then it's now mounting pretty flat, or it's mounting as it should. So I think this may be the last time of dropping this in the car. I think we did it. With these trimmed down a little bit, the radiator can now sit down so it can pass under the core support, which before it was touching that little flange or lip edge there. So on both sides, that's okay. If I line it up as it used to be, centered in the slot there, then we got about a 5 mil gap. And that 5 mil gap is essentially the difference in the thickness of the radiator. So doing the extra work for the 5 mils was 100% what was required, because I can't get any more out of that without weakening this bracket too much. So I think the radiator is in there unbelievably. And for all my, I guess, North Americans, I'm gonna guess North Americans, if you're thinking about getting a Koyorad, I think this is a problem unique to Japan or wherever this version of radiator is sold. I talked to DP or Dave from Speed Academy. I was like, yo dude, did you have this much problem? He's like, no, I just dropped it straight in. No clearance issues at all. If I remember correctly, when I checked the Koyorad website for whatever that North American product number is, I think it's maybe 32 mil or 38 mil, like significantly thinner, so you just don't have these fitment issues. Online, when you search like Yahoo Auctions or you search Koyorad here in Japan, the Type F is the like newest aluminum version available. We don't have that thin model the North American market seems to have, which would solve all these issues. So if you're in North America, fear not. I think you're gonna have a straight drop-in flawless install. I'm not bashing Koyorad. If you have a track car and you're not running AC, like this would be great. If anybody is building a car that doesn't want AC and they got a track car, they want a full-size radiator for their EG or something like that, or the DC2, that one's gonna be for sale. I can ship that surface mail anywhere in the world, I think, size-wise, and it'd be pretty darn cheap. So yeah, just kind of the stuff you get into with, modifying cars, even though it's supposed to be a drop-in. With the radiator in place, I'm going to finish off the install and take advantage of the car being up in the air, the radiator being drained of coolant, or I guess the system being drained of coolant, and install some more goodies. So paranoia kind of got the best of me, and I just kind of want to know what's going on better with the car. And I went into my stash and pulled out my Yashio Factory Okachan water temp display, basically. Not a gauge, just a display. Essentially the same thing now you can probably get for like, I think like $20 on Amazon, just a little digital readout of the temperature. What makes this one cool is it is the probe type, and it's the 4-position probe type. So you could have 4 sensors ran into the same display, and then with the turn of the knob you can get different temperature readings. If people don't know Yashio Factory, this is like S-chassis type stuff. Originally, a long time ago, I had a single probe type, and then they switched to like all OBD readout stuff. And then I ended up finding this years and years ago. I mean, I've had this thing probably about 8 years now. And then for that, we got a Duran water temp adapter, just no, basic aluminum, but Duran or Tanita quality stuff. So like, no fitment issue worries. And then for the gauge over here, it's a oil pressure gauge. It's a Defi oil pressure gauge, and this is part of the Racer series, so it doesn't have the separate control unit. This one you just wire direct. Again, finding a used oil pressure gauge was exceedingly difficult, as I think a lot of stuff is just going to OBD readout type displays. They don't, not many people are buying the actual physical gauges anymore. It's just more of like electronic display. So finding just the oil pressure was rather difficult, but found one. Again, a Duran sandwich plate. This one has 3 ports on it, so I can run a temp sensor and a pressure sensor. So yeah, that's what we're gonna chuck in there now. Chuck in meaning spend probably way too much time installing it. Alright, new day, and before we get to the mission at hand, a little trash update. Pretty excited I didn't screw it up. I only had 2 bags of the 12 rejected, and it's only because it says the pieces are, it's over 30 centimeters, so maybe their truck can't, crush that or something like that. So yeah, it was the right day. I gotta cut it smaller and I can get rid of it. I know most of you don't know this struggle, but if you're in Japan and you've played the trash game, that feels like a huge victory. Like, it's so easy to screw it up. I went ahead and reused the tension clamp on the engine side because I figured OEM clamp, OEM hose, you know, OEM engine, and then did a worm gear on this side so I don't have the same leaking issue like I did before when I reused the tension clamp. Hopefully that works out there. And then this is the radiator cap that this radiator came with. This is the one that I had bought for the old one, and when I tried to put this on, it was like catching and not going all the way on. So I just gave up on it, put it back in the package. Let's get those sensors hooked up. So while the car is in the air, I'm gonna go ahead and put this sandwich plate in place. Up under the car now. It looks like space is gonna be at a premium for that oil sandwich plate. Hopefully we can get that in there. Sandwich plate says if it comes with 2 O-rings on it, use only 1. So we should be the small guy there. So we'll pop out that big one and we'll be good to go. And one thing to note with JDM sensors, oil pressure, water temp, the thread pitch on them is 1/8 PT, not MPT, not BPT, PT. In America especially, it's hard to find stuff that is PT, which is just straight up pipe thread. Sensor in and all plugged up. I was kind of a dum-dum and I forgot to order another Defi temp sensor and harness lead so I could hook it up to my temperature gauge. Main thing right now is I would love to check the oil pressure. So we'll get this in there. Hopefully this layout works. It kind of found its own spot where it wants to sit. It won't go straight up, and out this side it won't fit there either, but there's a nice little pocket there, and it seems like a temp gauge or a temp sensor might fit in there in the future, so we will lock it down there. After fiddling with wiring and routing, basically just trying to find like the cleanest path for the wires, I got the temp sensor routed under the distributor, just following the factory wiring that comes up there, and then down below the intake there. And then where it comes out and under the intake on the other side, the oil pressure sensor is basically, it was just kind of waiting right there as well. And I might just do a little additional stay one here off the battery tray. But this blank factory grommet in the firewall was super handy. I just had to cut a little hole in it for the wires to pass through, and I could still fit one more. The idea was I could still fit one more temp sensor wire through there, and once I'm done, I'll probably put some like black RTV on it just to seal it up. So then on the inside of the car, that grommet is kind of right above, must be the AC hard line here, but it just comes into a little void, and so then the wires just kind of dropped out here naturally, so then I can just tuck them along here, and then they'll come out in the center console right there. Routing wires and trying to figure out how you can get through the firewall sometimes is the biggest struggle of doing gauges. Nissan stuff, like it's always a pain in the butt, but I can't believe there's 2 blank grommets in the firewall and they come out in like just exactly where you need it. So yeah, kudos to Honda. It took longer to cut the hole cleanly in that grommet than it did to actually like route the wires and get through the firewall. So next part, we'll do some wiring on the inside and see if everything powers up. So this is obviously the radio adapter, and I've done this in the past. I just bought some more of those little connectors and then just split it. So, you know, male and female here, and then I have 2 females here, so 1 for each gauge. For now, we'll just plug everything in, see if we got power, if we got display, and go from there. Alright, moment of truth. Negative terminal is on. Battery has juice, 12.4, nice. Limit brake auto. Accessory power. Nobody's got power. Failure number 1, no power. Very close, but something's just not right. I gotta check the pinouts. I got some shipping to do, so out of time for today. We will pick this up tomorrow. Back out here, round 2 with wiring. Success. This little guy here, this little 10 amp radio fuse was blown, so I had no accessory power. I had constant power, and then I rigged up a little dummy light with just some scrap I had here, so I could plug that in and find my constant power. Because I'm using a radio jumper harness, it doesn't match the pinout from the car, so I just got to guess and figure out which ones are which. But yeah, now turn the key and watch what happens. The gauges in the background there, you get the sweeping, and then the temp gauge comes on automatically, reads 26 because it's 26 degrees outside, no coolant in the system. And now if I flip the lights on, this should dim. Hits a, I don't know what the P was about, but then this one should dim. Barely this one, you can see it, but in person it's more noticeable. So the light dimming function's all good. Everything's got power. We got sensor reading out for that one. Obviously there's no pressure in the system right now, so the oil's not doing anything, so hopefully that sensor is good. I'll button all this up later. That's really annoying. So I could explain exactly where each wire goes, but that's not going to help you because everything's different for whatever you're wiring. But what is kind of cool is I left open slots here so I can plug a radio in later. I can get power to it and ground to it and stuff like that. These are all speaker, speaker wires there. But if anyone has any recommendations, I would be open to what, put them down below. I don't think I want to put like a traditional radio in there, maybe like a single DIN, maybe. But what I was thinking would be neat is a Bluetooth, amplified Bluetooth receiver in there that then has speaker outputs. I've seen someone do it on Instagram, just a little unit tucked behind there. Then they put the blank, ITR double DIN delete in there. I can't remember the Instagram, but it was super clean and it functioned, just off your phone, which is all I'm gonna do anyways. And then I can put the gauges, up here in front, but still retain, Bluetooth podcast radio function from my phone. So yeah, recommendations on that, put it down below. And the one tip, if there is a tip, this little teeny tiny wire here, I used another little piece of wire, come on, focus, another piece of wire stripped back in there as a filler just to kind of reinforce this one. And that's what it needed. It broke one time because it was just too small. And these are just the wrong size for that teeny tiny wire, but I wanted to hook it up so I have light illumination dimming and stuff like that. We'll get this buttoned up later. Unfortunately, the gauge won't fit in either of these slots, so I'm gonna come up with something with that. Maybe if one of you guys want to like 3D print something, I can give you specs for that, and then we can make a nice little organizer in here. But anyway, for another time, at least stuff is working right now. We'll clean it up in a bit. Next thing is to throw some coolant in it, and barring any leaks or major things like that, we will just cut to this thing running and being bled out, so you guys don't have to sit through that again. So fingers crossed. After letting it run a while, I came up to temp. Seems like it bled out okay. I didn't notice there's like no pooling, no drips from anything. No radiator stuff was wet. Like just crawling up here now to check the oil, and it just seems like old residuey oil, not like fresh dripping oil. There's nothing on the ground. So I think we might be in luck and ready to go test drive. How good does that look on the ground? Like a real car again, idling nicely. Check our ground for leaks, but it's dry, so I think mission accomplished. Let's go for a test drive and see how it does. But man, it feels good. This thing is running and back on the ground, and like the first time I feel good about it actually being safe. I don't know, what's the word? I'm not worried about like the radiator exploding. And I should point out, does look super clean, can't argue with that. I love the blue, keeping the theme together on the cap. But I just trimmed these upper mounts. Just trimmed the stock ones back and repainted them just a little flat black. Put new grommets in there, so they got the new rubber in it. And yeah, it looks sweet. And then on the interior, just did a quick cleanup job with the gauges. Got my oil pressure, it's just sticky two-sided tape, and water temp up there. But yeah, at idle, when it warmed up earlier, this got up to like 87 and held there, and then this was right around like 18 maybe. So with some revs, it reacts. So yeah, let's go for a little test drive. So fingers crossed we're good. Co-pilot Jane in the back has a fever, can't go to school, so she's stuck to hang out with Papa. Hey-oh. Temperature holding at 84 now. We're up in the revs a little bit. Man, it's running good. Oil pressure's good. Revs. Seems pretty good. Temps at 85, just lugging up a hill. Go up third. Oil pressure's good. No extra lights. Wow. I guess since we live by the mountains, we might as well drive through the mountains. Never been on this road before. Just wandering around. That's the mailman delivering the mail on his little moped, the box on the back. So happy to have gauges. Because like now I can actually see what's going on temperature-wise and pressure-wise instead of kind of guessing. Wow, that's so pretty. Baby. Dang, this thing just pulls. Yeah, it's like, finished up some suspension stuff, and this thing is gonna be solid. I don't know, maybe victory is mine, but ran really good on the way up here. We just picked a road and drove up in the mountains, you can see. In the mountains here, but super cool. So fun to get it in the twisties and actually feel the car a little bit. Yeah, I think it has potential to be a lot of fun. You can see just up on the hill there, all the cedar trees up there. But just confirming we made it home without issue. So good. Oh man, like first time driving it on some like twisty mountain roads and like kind of getting on it, and it just feels so good. Obviously the suspension's nothing wonderful, but still like the car just like naturally feels super good. The engine has like a lot of, you know, grunt for if you're in the rev range, but first time I've actually kind of driven it at anger a little bit and like enjoyed it on some twisty roads. So good. So excited to like keep pushing that along. But this phase, this refresh, I don't even know what this was, the radiator stuff, and having gauges in there now, like it just feels so good. We'll wrap it there for now, pick up my son with it. I was supposed to yesterday and didn't get it done in time, so surprise him with that. But otherwise, the DC2 is finally driving again. Let's keep it that way for a while. See you in the next one. Much love, be well.